Imagine this, deep in the sands of Egypt, beneath temples that now crumble under the weight of centuries. There was said to be a book so powerful, so mysterious, that even the gods themselves grew nervous about mortals reading it. This was no ordinary scroll, no dusty papyrus tucked away in a scribe's chamber. It was whispered to be the Book of Thoth, a text that promised forbidden wisdom, the kind of knowledge that could bend the stars, command the Nile, and perhaps even cheat death itself. The story begins like a bedtime tale told by history itself. Pharaohs claimed they were gods, priests guarded secrets with solemn faces, and scribes scratched symbols onto papyrus that looked more like spells than words. Somewhere in this grand theater of divine kingship, the Book of Thoth was said to exist, hidden, cursed, and waiting for the curious. But here's the catch. This book wasn't meant for humans. It was said to contain truths so vast that reading even a single line could unravel the mind. Imagine opening a page and suddenly understanding the language of birds, the secrets of the stars, or the whispers of the underworld. Sounds impressive, right? But also a little terrifying, like being handed the universe's instruction manual when all you wanted was a bedtime story. And so, the legend of the Book of Thoth became one of Egypt's most enduring mysteries. Was it real? Was it symbolic? Or was it simply a cautionary tale told to keep curious mortals from poking their noses into divine business? Whatever the answer, the myth has survived for thousands of years, drifting through temples, libraries, and the imaginations of anyone who ever wondered what secrets the gods might be hiding. So, settle in, let the sands of time whisper around you, and prepare to drift through the sleepy corridors of history. This is not just the story of Egypt's god-kings, but of the forbidden wisdom they claimed to guard. And hey, before you nod off completely, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments from where you're watching, preferably somewhere cozy, under a blanket, half asleep, wondering why you chose a history lecture as your lullaby. Long before the pharaohs claimed divinity, Egypt whispered the name of a god who seemed to embody wisdom itself. Thoth was no ordinary deity. He was the ibis-headed scribe of the heavens, the keeper of sacred words, the one who measured time, balanced truth, and recorded the deeds of gods and men alike. If the universe had a librarian, it was Thoth, endlessly patient, endlessly meticulous, and probably the only one who could keep track of eternity without misplacing a scroll. Thoth was said to have invented writing, giving humans the ability to scratch symbols onto papyrus and pretend they were smarter than they really were. He was the patron of scribes, the guardian of knowledge, and the divine accountant who made sure the cosmos didn't collapse under sloppy bookkeeping. When the gods argued, Thoth mediated. When mortals prayed, Thoth recorded. When pharaohs claimed to be gods, Thoth quietly noted it down, perhaps with a raised eyebrow. But Thoth was more than a divine secretary. He was the master of magic, the one who understood that words themselves carried power. To speak was to shape reality, to write was to bind it, and to know the right words was to command the universe. This made him both revered and feared, because knowledge in Egypt was never just information, it was power, dangerous and dazzling. Legends painted Thoth as the author of hidden texts, the keeper of forbidden wisdom, and the one who knew secrets that even the gods hesitated to reveal. His presence lingered in temples, in libraries, and in the imagination of every scribe who dipped a reed into ink. and wondered if they were touching eternity. And so, Thoth became the eternal figure of wisdom in Egypt, a god who did not rule with armies or crowns, but with words, symbols, and silence. He was the reminder that knowledge could be divine, that wisdom could be sacred, and that sometimes the most powerful god was the one who simply wrote everything down. In the land of Egypt, words were never just words. To write was to weave spells, to speak was to shape reality, and to record was to bind eternity. The Egyptians believed that language itself carried divine power, and at the center of this belief stood the god Thoth, the master of writing and wisdom. Hieroglyphs were more than pretty pictures carved into stone. They were sacred symbols that connected the human world to the divine. Each sign carried layers of meaning, each inscription a ritual in itself. When a scribe dipped his reed into ink and scratched onto papyrus, he was not merely documenting events, he was performing magic. To write the name of a pharaoh was to ensure his immortality. To inscribe a prayer was to make it echo in the halls of the gods. Scribes held a special place in Egyptian society. They were guardians of knowledge, keepers of secrets, and servants of eternity. Their work was considered so sacred that mistakes were feared. For a misplaced symbol could alter the meaning of a spell or disrupt the balance of math. In their hands, writing became a tool of power, capable of preserving dynasties, invoking gods, and protecting souls in the afterlife. Sacred texts filled temples and tombs, from the pyramid texts to the Book of the Dead. These writings guided the dead through the underworld, offering spells to overcome dangers and instructions to reach paradise. To the Egyptians, words were weapons against chaos, shields against oblivion, and bridges to eternity. Thus, writing in Egypt was never ordinary. It was magic disguised as language, a divine gift that allowed mortals to touch the eternal. And in every scroll, every carved wall, every whispered spell, the presence of Thoth lingered, reminding the people that words were sacred, and that to write was to wield the power of the gods. Among the countless myths that drifted through the temples and tombs of Egypt, none carried quite the same aura of mystery as the legend of the Book of Thoth. It was said to be no ordinary scroll, no simple collection of hymns or spells. Instead, it was the ultimate text, a book written by Thoth himself, the god of wisdom, containing secrets so profound that even the gods hesitated to reveal them. The legend whispered that whoever possessed the book would gain the power to understand the language of animals, to command the elements, and to see the very machinery of the cosmos. Imagine a scribe, weary from copying tax records, suddenly opening a page and discovering how to speak with crocodiles, or how to bend the stars to his will. It was knowledge that promised greatness, but also danger, for the gods were not fond of mortals meddling in their affairs. Stories told of pharaohs and princes who sought the book, believing it would grant them eternal rule. One tale spoke of Prince Neferkaptah, who found the book hidden in a chest at the bottom of the Nile, guarded by serpents and curses. He read its words, and for a moment he touched the divine. But the gods, displeased, struck him down, reminding mortals that some wisdom was never meant to be theirs. The Book of Thoth became a symbol of forbidden knowledge, a reminder that curiosity could be dangerous, and that the line between human and divine was not meant to be crossed. Priests spoke of it in hushed tones, scribes dreamed of it, and storytellers embellished its powers until it became less a book and more a mythic mirror of humanity's endless hunger for secrets. Whether it truly existed or not mattered little. What mattered was the story, a tale that carried through centuries, warning and enticing, lulling listeners into the strange comfort of knowing that somewhere hidden in the sands of Egypt there might still be a book that could change everything. And so the legend endured, drifting like the Nile's current, reminding us that sometimes the most powerful stories are those that promise knowledge we can never truly hold. In the imagination of ancient Egypt, knowledge was not a gift freely given to all. It was a treasure, guarded carefully, parceled out sparingly, and often reserved for those who wore crowns or carried sacred titles. The gods themselves were believed to hold the deepest truths of the universe, truths about creation, death, rebirth, and the hidden forces that kept the cosmos in balance. Mortals, meanwhile, were expected to live within the boundaries of Mat, the order of things, without peering too far beyond the veil. The Book of Thoth embodied this idea perfectly. It was said to contain wisdom so vast and dangerous that only the gods could wield it safely. To read its words was to risk unraveling the delicate fabric of existence. Imagine a farmer suddenly learning the secrets of the stars, or a scribe discovering how to command the winds. Such knowledge might sound thrilling, but in the wrong hands it could bring chaos. The gods, therefore, kept these truths hidden, locked away in temples, guarded by curses, and whispered only in myth. Priests reinforced this boundary. They reminded the people that divine knowledge was not meant for everyday use, that rituals and prayers were enough to maintain harmony. The pharaoh, as the living god, was permitted glimpses of this wisdom, but even he was bound by limits. To know too much was to risk angering the gods, and Egypt's stories are filled with cautionary tales of mortals who reached too far and paid the price. Thus, the idea of knowledge meant only for the gods became a cornerstone of Egyptian belief. It was both a warning and a comfort, a reminder that some mysteries were too great for human minds, and that the divine order depended on keeping certain truths out of reach. The Book of Thoth was not just a legend of forbidden wisdom. It was a symbol of the boundary between mortal curiosity and divine power, a boundary that kept the world in balance, even as it tempted dreamers to cross it. The Egyptians believed that the universe was not random, but carefully ordered, woven together by divine principles that only the gods fully understood. To them, the stars were not just lights in the sky. The Nile was not just a river, and the winds were not just breezes. Each element of nature carried meaning. Each movement of the cosmos reflected a deeper truth. And at the center of this grand design was Thoth, the god of wisdom, who was said to hold the key to understanding it all. The Book of Thoth, according to legend, contained the power to unlock these secrets. Whoever read its words would suddenly perceive the hidden language of the world. Birds would no longer chirp aimlessly. Their songs would reveal messages. The stars would cease to be distant points of light. They would become maps of destiny. Even the flow of the Nile would speak, whispering the rhythms of life and death. This was not knowledge for idle curiosity. To understand nature and the cosmos was to wield power. A pharaoh who could read the book might command the floods, predict harvests, or even bend the heavens to his will. A scribe who dared to study its lines might learn spells that could heal or destroy, summon storms or silence them. The cosmos itself would become a library, and the reader its master. But such knowledge carried danger. To see too much was to risk losing balance, for the human mind was not built to hold the weight of eternity. The gods, jealous of their secrets, ensured that mortals who reached too far would pay a price. Stories warned that those who tried to master the book often met with curses, madness, or untimely death. Still, the legend endured because it spoke to humanity's deepest longing, the desire to understand the world, to see beyond appearances, to grasp the hidden order of things. The Book of Thoth became a symbol of ultimate wisdom, a reminder that nature and the cosmos were not mysteries to be solved lightly, but sacred truths to be approached with reverence and perhaps with a little fear. Among the many whispers surrounding the Book of Thoth, none were more chilling than the claim that it held the power to command life and death itself. This was not simply a manual of wisdom or a guide to the stars. It was said to be a text that could bend the very fabric of existence. To read its words was to hold the keys to creation and destruction, to summon spirits, to silence breath, and to awaken the dead. Egyptian myth painted the book as a dangerous treasure, hidden away because of its terrifying potential. Imagine a scribe, weary from copying tax records, suddenly discovering a spell that could bring a mummy back to life, or a pharaoh learning how to extend his reign indefinitely by cheating mortality. Such powers were tempting, but they carried consequences. The gods, jealous of their authority, did not take kindly to mortals meddling with the balance of the universe. The legend of Prince Neferkaptah, who sought and read the book, illustrates this danger. He gained knowledge beyond imagination, but the gods cursed him, ensuring that his family suffered and his life ended in tragedy. The lesson was clear. To control life and death was to trespass into divine territory, and mortals who dared to cross that line would pay dearly. The Book of Thoth thus became a symbol of ultimate forbidden power. It was not just about wisdom or magic. It was about the temptation to wield authority that belonged only to the gods. To read it was to risk unraveling the order of Mat, the balance that kept chaos at bay. And so, the story endured, carried through centuries as both a warning and a fascination. The idea that a single book could hold the secrets of life and death was enough to keep listeners awake, or perhaps lull them into uneasy dreams, imagining what might happen if such knowledge ever fell into human hands. In the grand machinery of Egypt's divine kingdom, few roles were as quietly powerful as that of the scribe. These men, often trained from childhood, were the keepers of words, the guardians of memory, and the silent architects of eternity. While pharaohs wore crowns and priests performed rituals, it was the scribes who ensured that their deeds, prayers, and proclamations were preserved in ink and stone. To be a scribe was to hold a privileged place in society. They did not toil in the fields or sweat under the sun, dragging blocks for pyramids. Instead, they sat with reed pens and papyrus, recording taxes, treaties, hymns, and spells. Their work was considered sacred, for writing itself was a gift from Thoth, the god of wisdom. Every hieroglyph carried weight, every inscription a ripple in the cosmic order. Sacred texts filled the temples and tombs, forming a vast library of divine knowledge. The pyramid texts, carved into stone walls, guided kings through the afterlife. The coffin texts expanded these spells for nobles, while the Book of the Dead offered instructions for ordinary Egyptians seeking safe passage into eternity. Each line was more than literature. It was magic, a spell to protect the soul and ensure harmony with the gods. Scribes were entrusted with these texts, copying them with precision, guarding them against error, and sometimes embellishing them with flourishes of artistry. A misplaced symbol could alter the meaning of a spell, so accuracy was not just important, it was vital. To write was to wield power, and scribes knew that their pens carried the weight of life, death, and eternity. Thus, the scribes became the quiet custodians of Egypt's sacred knowledge. They were the bridge between gods and men, the ones who transformed divine whispers into lasting words. Without them, the legends of the Book of Thoth, the rituals of the temples, and the promises of the afterlife would have vanished into silence. Instead, thanks to their ink and patience, Egypt's wisdom endured, etched into papyrus and stone, waiting for future generations to read or to dream about as sleep slowly overtakes the listener. Among the many stories woven around the Book of Thoth, none is as haunting or as cautionary as the tale of Prince Neferkapata. He was said to be a nobleman of great learning, a man whose curiosity burned brighter than the desert sun. Unlike other mortals who were content with prayers and rituals, Neferkapa longed for the forbidden wisdom hidden in the sacred book. The legend tells that he discovered where the book was concealed, locked inside a chest, buried beneath the waters of the Nile, guarded by serpents and curses. With determination that bordered on recklessness, he sought it out, braving dangers that would have terrified lesser men. He fought the guardians, broke the seals, and finally laid his hands upon the book, said to be written by Thoth himself. When Neferkapta opened its pages, the world changed. He read spells that allowed him to understand the language of animals, to command the forces of nature, and to glimpse the secrets of the cosmos. For a moment, he touched the divine, and his heart swelled with triumph. But the gods were not amused. They had hidden the book for a reason, and Neferkapta's theft was an unforgivable trespass. The curse fell swiftly. Though he possessed the book, tragedy struck his family. His wife and son were taken by the wrath of the gods, and Neferkapta himself was doomed to die. His victory hollow, his wisdom poisoned by grief. The book, once a treasure, became a burden, a reminder that some knowledge is too dangerous for mortals to hold. Thus, the tale of Prince Neferkapta became a warning passed down through generations. It was not simply a story of ambition, but of the peril that comes when humans reach beyond their limits. The Book of Thoth promised greatness, but for Neferkapta it delivered only sorrow. His name endures as a symbol of curiosity punished, of wisdom sought too boldly, and of the eternal truth that some doors are better left unopened. The legend of the Book of Thoth carried with it not only promises of divine wisdom, but also the shadow of a curse. Ancient storytellers warned that anyone bold enough to open its pages would not simply gain knowledge, they would invite disaster. The gods, jealous of their secrets, had woven punishments into the very fabric of the book, ensuring that mortals who trespassed into forbidden realms would pay dearly. The curse was said to strike in many ways. Some tales spoke of madness, where the reader's mind unraveled under the weight of truths too vast for human comprehension. Others described misfortune, where families suffered, fortunes collapsed, and lives ended in sorrow. The most famous example was Prince Neferkapta, who, after reading the book, lost his wife and son to the wrath of the gods, and eventually his own life. His triumph turned to tragedy, his wisdom poisoned by grief. The curse served a purpose. It reminded mortals that certain boundaries were not meant to be crossed. Knowledge of life, death, and the cosmos was the domain of the divine, and to steal it was to disrupt the balance that kept chaos at bay. The gods did not need to guard the book with armies. The curse itself was enough to deter most seekers. Yet the danger only made the legend more alluring. The idea of a book so powerful that it carried its own punishment fascinated generations. It became a tale told in temples and whispered in marketplaces, a story that warned against hubris while feeding the imagination of dreamers. Thus, the curse of the Book of Thoth became inseparable from its myth. It was not simply a text of wisdom, but a trap for the curious, a reminder that some doors, once opened, cannot be closed without consequence. And in the quiet of the night, as the story droned on like a sleepy lecture, listeners could almost feel the weight of that curse pressing against their eyelids, nudging them gently toward dreams. The legend of the Book of Thoth always carried with it a question. If such wisdom existed, why was it hidden? The answer, according to Egyptian myth, lay in the delicate balance of the cosmic order that kept chaos at bay. The gods understood that knowledge was not simply a gift, it was a force, and like fire, it could warm or it could destroy. To grant mortals the secrets of life, death, and the cosmos was to risk unraveling the very fabric of existence. Imagine farmers commanding floods, scribes summoning storms, or rulers bending the stars to their will. Such powers might sound impressive, but they would tip the scales of balance, turning order into chaos. The gods, jealous of their authority and protective of the universe, chose to keep these truths locked away. The Book of Thoth became the symbol of this divine boundary. It was said to be hidden in chests beneath rivers, guarded by serpents, sealed with curses, and protected by the wrath of the gods themselves. Not because they feared mortals discovering it, but because they knew mortals could not bear the weight of its wisdom without consequence. Priests reinforced this belief, reminding the people that the gods had their reasons. Some knowledge was too vast, too dangerous, too sacred to be entrusted to human hands. The myths of Neferkapta and others who sought the book served as cautionary tales, illustrating the punishment that awaited those who crossed the line. Thus, the gods hid the knowledge, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. They understood that wisdom without limits could destroy the very order they had created. The Book of Thoth was not just forbidden. It was a reminder that some mysteries must remain mysteries, lest the world collapse under the weight of human ambition. And so, the story lulled listeners into reflection, a slow, steady reminder that even in the pursuit of knowledge, silence sometimes holds more power than words. Egypt was a civilization of stone and ink, of towering temples and fragile papyrus scrolls. Within its sacred walls, knowledge was stored like treasure, guarded by priests and scribes who understood that words were more than symbols. They were spells, prayers, and bridges to eternity. Temples were not only places of worship, they were centers of learning. Behind the grand columns and statues of gods, rooms were filled with scrolls, rituals, and records. Priests copied hymns, astronomers charted the stars, and healers recorded remedies. Each scroll was a fragment of divine wisdom, a piece of the cosmic puzzle entrusted to human hands. The libraries of Egypt, though less famous than those of Greece, were whispered to be vast. Some tales spoke of hidden collections within temples, repositories of sacred texts that contained everything from agricultural instructions to magical incantations. These libraries were said to house fragments of the Book of Thoth itself, or at least echoes of its forbidden wisdom. Whether true or not, the idea of lost libraries became part of Egypt's enduring mystery. But papyrus was fragile, and time was merciless. Floods, fires, invasions, and neglect destroyed countless scrolls. What survived was often buried in tombs, sealed away with mummies, or hidden in desert sands. The silence of these lost libraries became as haunting as their contents. What knowledge was erased? What secrets vanished? What wisdom slipped quietly into oblivion? The story of Egypt's temples and scrolls reminds us that knowledge is both enduring and fragile. Stone monuments may last for millennia, but papyrus crumbles, ink fades, and libraries vanish. The Book of Thoth, whether real or symbolic, became part of this cycle, a legend of wisdom preserved in whispers, lost in time, and remembered only in myth. And so, as the tale drifts on like the Nile's current, listeners are lulled by the thought of scrolls stacked in forgotten chambers, waiting in silence, their words unread, their secrets untold, their magic fading into dreams. In the imagination of ancient Egypt, magic was not a fringe practice, but a central force woven into daily life. The Egyptians called it Heka, the divine energy that animated the universe, the invisible thread that bound God's nature and humanity together. To them, magic was not superstition. It was a sacred science, a way of aligning with the cosmic order. And at the heart of this belief stood the Book of Thoth, whispered to be the ultimate source of magical knowledge. The book was said to contain spells that could command the elements, summon spirits, and even alter the course of destiny. To read its words was to step into the role of the gods themselves, wielding powers that shaped the world. Imagine a priest standing in a temple, chanting lines from the book, and suddenly the air thickens, the torches flicker, and the unseen forces of the cosmos bend to his will. Such was the allure of Thoth's forbidden text. Egyptian magic was deeply tied to writing. Hieroglyphs were not just symbols, they were living forces. To inscribe a spell was to trap its power in ink. To carve it into stone was to make it eternal. The Book of Thoth, written by the god of wisdom himself, was believed to be the pinnacle of this practice, a text where every word was a spell, every line a key to the universe. But magic was not only about grandeur, it was woven into everyday life. Amulets to protect children, charms to heal sickness, rituals to ensure the Nile's flood. The Book of Thoth represented the extreme end of this spectrum, the dangerous, forbidden knowledge that went beyond healing and protection into realms of control and domination. Priests warned that such power was not meant for mortals. To wield the book's magic was to risk upsetting Mat, the balance that kept chaos at bay. Yet the legend endured because it spoke to humanity's eternal temptation, the desire to hold power greater than ourselves, to whisper words that could bend the world. And so, the Book of Thoth became inseparable from Egyptian magic, a symbol of ultimate spells, forbidden wisdom, and the haunting reminder that sometimes the most powerful magic is the one we are never meant to use. As the legend of the Book of Thoth drifted through centuries, it began to intertwine with other myths of hidden wisdom. One of the most intriguing connections was to the Emerald Tablets, mysterious texts said to contain the secrets of alchemy, the cosmos, and the transformation of the soul. Just as the Book of Thoth was whispered to hold forbidden knowledge in Egypt, the emerald tablets were rumored to carry truths that could reshape reality itself. The emerald tablets, often attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, a figure who blended the identities of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. In this fusion, Thoth's wisdom was carried into the Hellenistic world, transformed into teachings that spoke of, as above, so below, the idea that the cosmos and the human spirit mirrored one another. The Book of Thoth and the Emerald Tablets thus became two sides of the same mythic coin, one hidden in the sands of Egypt, the other shining in the imagination of alchemists and philosophers. Both texts were said to contain knowledge that transcended ordinary understanding. The Book of Thoth promised spells to command life and death, while the Emerald Tablets offered formulas for eternal life and the Philosopher's Stone. Both carried the same warning that such wisdom was not meant for casual use, and that those who sought it risked madness, ruin, or divine punishment. The connection between the two legends reveals how myths evolve, blending across cultures and eras. Egyptian priests spoke of Thoth's forbidden book, while medieval alchemists dreamed of emerald inscriptions that could unlock the mysteries of matter and spirit. Together, they created a tapestry of forbidden knowledge, a story that continues to fascinate dreamers, scholars, and sleepy listeners alike. And so the Book of Thoth and the Emerald Tablets remain bound in legend, twin echoes of humanity's endless desire to reach beyond the ordinary, to touch the divine, and to hold secrets that shimmer just out of reach. The question that lingers like desert wind through the ages is simple yet profound. Was the Book of Thoth an actual object, a scroll hidden in temples, or buried beneath the Nile, or was it purely symbolic, a myth meant to teach lessons about wisdom, power, and human limits? On one hand, the Egyptians were masters of writing and preservation. They filled tombs with texts, carved spells into stone, and stored papyrus scrolls in temple libraries. It is not impossible to imagine that somewhere a sacred manuscript existed, revered by priests and whispered about by scribes. Perhaps fragments of its teachings were absorbed into the Book of the Dead or other ritual texts, lending credence to the idea that the Book of Thoth was once real. On the other hand, myths often served as allegories. The book may never have existed physically, but instead symbolized the dangers of forbidden knowledge. To read it was to cross boundaries set by the gods, to trespass into realms beyond human comprehension. In this sense, the book was not a scroll but a story, a cautionary tale reminding mortals that curiosity, while noble, could also be perilous. The blending of myth and reality is what makes the legend so enduring. Scholars debate, storytellers embellish, and dreamers wonder. Was it hidden in a chest beneath the Nile? Was it locked away in a lost library? Or was it simply a metaphor, a mirror reflecting humanity's eternal hunger for secrets? Ultimately, the Book of Thoth exists most powerfully in imagination. Whether real or symbolic, it continues to inspire awe, caution, and curiosity. It reminds us that wisdom is both a gift and a burden, and that sometimes the most powerful texts are those that live not in libraries, but in legends. And so, the story drifts on, half real, half dream, leaving listeners to decide for themselves before sleep finally claims them, like a gentle curse of the gods. The legend of the Book of Thoth is not unique in its warning about wisdom too dangerous for mortals. Across the ancient world, civilizations told similar stories of hidden texts, divine secrets, and forbidden knowledge, tales that reveal a universal truth. Humanity has always longed for mysteries beyond its reach, even as it feared the consequences of uncovering them. The Sumerians spoke of the tablets of destiny, cosmic records said to grant supreme authority over the universe. Whoever possessed them could control fate itself, but they were guarded fiercely by the gods. Babylonian myths warned of divine secrets hidden in the stars, accessible only to priests trained in astrology. To misuse this knowledge was to invite chaos. In Greek myth, Prometheus stole fire, a symbol of divine knowledge, from the gods and gave it to humanity. His punishment was eternal torment, a reminder that forbidden gifts carried heavy costs. The Oracle of Delphi offered glimpses of divine truth, but her cryptic words often led mortals astray, showing that even partial knowledge could be perilous. Ancient Hindu texts spoke of the Vedas, sacred knowledge revealed to sages. Yet certain hymns and rituals were restricted, believed too powerful for ordinary people. The concept of Maya illusion warned that ultimate truths about reality were hidden, and those who sought them without discipline risked delusion. The Maya and Aztec civilizations preserved codices filled with astronomical and ritual knowledge. Some were said to contain secrets of time itself, guiding cycles of creation and destruction. Priests guarded these texts, believing that misuse could disrupt the balance between gods and humans. The Book of Thoth fits seamlessly into this global tapestry. Like the tablets of destiny, the Vedas, or Prometheus's fire, it symbolized humanity's eternal temptation, the desire to hold knowledge reserved for the divine. Each culture warned that such wisdom was both alluring and dangerous, a gift that could elevate or destroy. Across civilizations, forbidden knowledge was never just about texts or spells. It was about boundaries, the line between human curiosity and divine order. These myths remind us that wisdom is power, but power without balance can unravel the world. And so, the story of forbidden knowledge echoes across time, from the Nile to Babylon, from Greece to India, from the temples of the Maya to the libraries of Egypt. It is a chorus of caution, a reminder that some mysteries are best left in the hands of the gods, even as mortals continue to dream of unlocking them. The story of the Book of Thoth is more than a tale of forbidden wisdom. It is a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest struggles with knowledge, ambition, and restraint. Beneath the layers of myth lie lessons that continue to resonate across time. The myth reminds us that curiosity is both a gift and a danger. To seek knowledge is noble, but to pursue it recklessly can lead to ruin. Prince Neferkapeta's tragedy illustrates that wisdom without boundaries can destroy not only the seeker, but those they love. The Book of Thoth symbolizes truths too vast for mortal minds. It teaches that some mysteries, life, death, the cosmos, may remain beyond human grasp. The lesson is not to abandon learning, but to recognize that humility must accompany discovery. Writing in Egyptian belief was magic. The myth underscores the idea that words are not neutral. They shape reality, preserve memory, and wield power. The Book of Thoth magnifies this truth, showing that knowledge itself can be as dangerous as any weapon. The gods hid the book not out of cruelty, but to protect balance. The myth teaches reverence for boundaries, reminding mortals that harmony depends on respecting forces greater than themselves. It is a lesson in humility before the sacred. Across civilizations, similar stories warn against forbidden knowledge. The Book of Thoth fits into this global pattern, teaching that humanity's hunger for secrets is timeless, and so are the consequences of overreaching. Ultimately, the myth is not about a lost scroll, but about the human condition. It teaches that wisdom must be tempered with responsibility, that ambition must bow to humility, and that the pursuit of knowledge is most powerful when guided by respect for balance. And so, the Book of Thoth continues to whisper across centuries, not as a manual of spells, but as a parable, reminding us that the greatest lessons are often hidden within the stories we tell, waiting to be uncovered by those who listen closely. The myth of the Book of Thoth, like so many tales of forbidden wisdom, carries a sobering lesson. Not all knowledge is meant to be held by human hands. Ancient Egyptians believed that the gods guarded certain truths because they were too vast, too dangerous, or too sacred for mortals to wield. To cross that boundary was to risk unraveling the delicate balance of Mat, the cosmic order that kept chaos at bay. In Egypt, writing itself was considered magical. Words could summon gods, protect souls, or curse enemies. The Book of Thoth magnified this idea, offering spells that could command life, death, and the cosmos. Such power, if misused, could destabilize the world. The lesson: wisdom without restraint becomes destruction. Some truths were believed to overwhelm the human mind. To understand the machinery of the universe, the language of animals, or the secrets of immortality was to carry a burden too heavy for mortals. The gods, in their stories, acted as guardians, not out of cruelty, but out of recognition that human ambition often outpaces human responsibility. The myth teaches that boundaries exist for a reason. Just as fire can warm or burn, knowledge can heal or destroy. The gods hid certain wisdom to protect the harmony of creation. Mortals who ignored this boundary, like Prince Neferkapta, became cautionary figures, punished not for curiosity itself, but for daring to wield powers beyond their station. Across civilizations, similar warnings appear. Prometheus punished for stealing fire, the Sumerian tablets of destiny guarded by gods, the Vedic hymns restricted to sages. Each culture echoed the same truth: some knowledge is too dangerous to be freely given. The myth of the Book of Thoth reminds us that the pursuit of wisdom must be tempered with humility. Curiosity drives progress, but unchecked ambition can lead to ruin. Some mysteries are not denied to humanity out of malice, but because they demand reverence, patience, and balance. And so, the story endures a whisper from the past that not all doors should be opened, not all secrets should be spoken, and not all knowledge was ever meant for human hands. The fate of the Book of Thoth is as mysterious as its legend. Ancient tales insist that it was hidden away, locked in chests beneath rivers, guarded by serpents, or buried deep within temple vaults. Yet no trace of it has ever been found. Its disappearance became part of the myth itself, a silence that speaks louder than discovery. Some stories claim the book was sealed in a chest and sunk into the waters of the Nile, guarded by divine curses. The river, eternal and ever-flowing, became its tomb, ensuring that mortals could never reach it without divine permission. Other traditions suggest the book was stored in sacred libraries, perhaps within temples dedicated to Thoth. Over centuries, invasions, fires, and the slow decay of papyrus may have erased its presence. If it ever existed physically, time itself may have consumed it. The most haunting explanation is that the gods themselves ensured its disappearance. The book was never meant to endure in human hands. Its vanishing was not an accident, but a deliberate act to protect the balance of Mat. By removing it from the world, the gods preserved order and reminded mortals of their limits. Even if the book was never real, its disappearance carries meaning. It symbolizes the unattainable, the wisdom humanity longs for, but can never fully grasp. The absence of the book is itself the lesson. Some truths are destined to remain hidden, existing only in myth and imagination. Though the Book of Thoth has vanished, its legend endures. It survives in whispers, in stories of forbidden knowledge, in echoes across other cultures, myths of hidden wisdom. Its disappearance transformed it from a mere object into a timeless symbol, a reminder that the most powerful treasures are often those we can never hold. And so, the Book of Thoth disappeared not into dust, but into legend. Its absence became its presence, its silence became its voice, and its mystery continues to drift through time, lulling listeners into wonder as the tale fades into dreams. The journey through the legend of the Book of Thoth has carried us across temples, tombs, myths, and mysteries. We have seen how forbidden knowledge tempted mortals, how the gods guarded their secrets, and how stories of wisdom became warnings for generations. At its heart, the myth is not about a lost scroll, but about the human condition. It teaches that curiosity is powerful, but it must be tempered with humility. It reminds us that silence can be as wise as speech, and that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. The Book of Thoth endures, not because it was found, but because it was hidden, a symbol of the eternal tension between what we know and what we long to know. Like the Nile flowing endlessly through Egypt, the story drifts on, carrying with it lessons of balance, reverence, and restraint. It whispers that wisdom is not only in discovery, but also in knowing when to stop searching. And now, as the tale comes to its close, the words soften, the echoes fade, and the silence grows gentle. The story has done its work, guiding thought, stirring imagination, and finally, inviting rest. So let the Book of Thoth slip back into legend, its pages closing quietly in the night. May its lessons linger in dreams, and may sleep carry you into peace. Good night.